Love and Watches is a podcast for male and female watch lovers alike. Perpetual Girl and Ranch Racer are a watch-crazy wife and husband team bringing you the latest in news, gossip, controversy, and anything else that matters in the world of watches. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, Watch fam. You guys have made it to episode number 16 of the Love and Watches podcast. This is Ranch Racer.
And this is Perpetual Girl.
And we are very, very excited about this episode. It's another milestone episode because for this episode, we are bringing on our very first guest. Mm-hmm. So it's taken a little bit of time to get there, we know. And before I introduce our guest, I'm going to talk a little bit about how long, you would think like bringing someone in over Skype would be easy, right? You just set up your computer, hit record, whatever, you're good to go. But when we started this podcast, we made this commitment to you guys that we were going to do it right? So we didn't start by recording off of our laptop. We actually bought all the audio gear.
Not that there's anything wrong with that. A lot of people rely on their laptops.
Totally, but we wanted to offer the best product that we could. So we bought the soundboards and we bought the mics and the...
Well, you're sort of a techie. It's a hobby for you.
Well, I'm a techie, but I am not an audio techie, right?
Or electronics.
I should say back in high school, I did some DJing, but it was a little bit different than this.
That was with records.
Yeah. So anyway, I had to learn. It was like this whole learning experience to figure out how to get the Skype call piped into the laptop and then piped through the soundboard and then back out of the laptop into the soundboard, make sure our guests didn't hear themselves speaking.
It's like a computer game.
So I've learned it's called a mix minus. So I had to learn all the channels, buy a bunch of cables and everything. But long story short,
it's working. That sounds like a
mix minus.
Sounds like a alias.
It kind of does, huh? Yeah. So anyway, on to our guests. So we've been kind of compiling a list of potential guests for quite a while. And this gentleman is someone that I really wanted to have as our first guest. We've known him for a while. Known him since before we started the podcast, I think, right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Maybe almost the same time.
Or right around the same time, yeah. And I'm gonna tell you what his first name is. It's Maciej, but I just completely give up on the last name. So Maciej, I am gonna let you introduce yourself and let you pronounce your darn last name because I just can't do it.
Okay, Ranch Racer. Hello, everyone. I am definitely honored to be here. My name is Maciej Nejmantowicz. How's that?
There we go.
Nejmantowicz.
Okay.
That's actually pretty easy.
Uh-huh.
It's actually not too bad.
Nejmantowicz on the first syllable.
Looking at it, I'm a dumb American. I can't. God, I look at that. It's like I can't pronounce that.
It's not Nejmantowicz.
No.
Nejmantowicz.
Nejmantowicz.
Okay. So. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's always the topic of the first topic of when somebody introduces me, so I'm kind of used to it.
Yeah, it's like I said, for those of us that are not exposed to those other languages, it's a little tough one to pronounce. But anyway, so Maciej, I got to know Maciej, I think at first over Instagram, and the way this all came about was. For those, we've talked about it on the show before, but a group called Redbar, which is now it's a worldwide organization of regional groups of watch geeks, basically, that get together,
enthusiasts,
once a month usually, and share watches and talk watches and just have a good time. And so I had learned a little bit about Redbar, and honestly, my first impression when I first started looking into Redbar was, man, this is high-end stuff. Right? Like you'd see the posts on Instagram and there's, Langas and even some Pateks and it was like Chicago and New York type get-togethers and
fancy.
I'm like, man, this is way out of our league. This is not something that we'd ever participate in. And then I met Maciej over Instagram and he's like, come on out, come to a Redbar Sacramento.
Mm-hmm. That was before I was even on Instagram.
It was, yeah. And it was an amazing experience. We went and hooked up with you guys, and then I actually wrote an article for Wristwatch Review, and we've talked about it on the podcast. But anyway, it was a fantastic experience, and ever since then, we've gotten to know Maciej, and
it was like we knew him for a long time.
Yeah.
No, that's very nice of you guys. That's nice for you guys to say. I think the whole idea of Redbar and what it's meant to do is to provide that kind of atmosphere, right? This is a hobby. This is something that's not life or death. It's not going to break or make you or anything like that. It's about passion. So it's nice to hear that when we invite people, new to the group or what have you, they have that experience. That's the whole thing that was kind of, from a Sacramento perspective, that's what we wanted, right? Or at least that's what I wanted. I wanted to have an intimate group that knew each other very, very well, and was able just to have fun with the hobby, to joke around and talk watches, right?
No, absolutely. And that's such a great way to put it. I mean, it's just a bunch of passionate people. And, one thing we all participate in Instagram. It's kind of the popular place for watch geeks because we look at each other's watches, we learn about watches, but it seems like we're always looking for other watch people, right? And I mean, we've all been there in public where you see someone wearing a watch and you're like,
oh, what is it?
That's a cool this and that. And they look at you like, what? Oh, okay, whatever. What are you talking about, weirdo? You kind of, so you're always looking for friends to share this with. And that's what Redbar brings to the table. So Maciej, before we get into Redbar, I would love for you to just kind of let our audience know how you got into this, right? I mean, you started off life way far away across an ocean in Poland, and you've been here for a long time. But why don't you just kind of give us an idea how you got into this hobby? Because for everyone, it's a little bit different, right?
Right. Well, honestly, one of the members of Redbar is the person who got me into watches. He was always into watches, and I actually became best friends with his wife first, we used to sit down for dinner and talk, and he always brought out his annual, I think it was Watch Time or the annual pieces, right? That listed out all the watches, and he'd kind of go through it one by one and show me and say, "Hey, look how cool this was, look how cool that is," and I was like, oh, dude, I don't care. This has no interest for me. I have a IT background and I'm all digital, and why have a watch, right? I had I had a watch that I wore, that I bought, one watch. It was a Seiko titanium that I also gifted to my father, and we basically just okay, I got a watch, and go on, right? That's it. That's all I need, right? And when this one breaks, I'll just buy another one or whatever, or maybe not, and we'll go on. But it was really thanks to him. He kind of said, "Hey, why don't you take a look at this?" And I was kind of looking at some stuff, and it happened that he bought a particular watch that weekend, and he showed me, and it was and I still have it. It was a orange band, silicone band, Tissot T-Touch. And it was digital, right? And I was like, oh, wow. But look at it, look what it can do. It has a touch screen. You can have a compass. It has a barometer, right? It has temperature readings. So it was kind of a quasi-digital watch, right? And yet I love the aesthetics of it. And I loved orange because it popped. And I was like, wow, this is great. I just went to the store. He got it, and I got one for myself, right? And that's really kind of how it all started, right? Just like loving a particular digital watch. And, I was kind of hooked at that point, right? Maybe, what else is out there if this is so cool, right?
Awesome. So, and I think this perfectly, we've got an idea of kind of how you started. So this perfectly leads us into what we normally start the show with, which is our wrist checks. And since you are our guest today, we are going to give you the honor of doing the first wrist check.
No, thank you very much. I am wearing my Grail watch, which is the Renaissance Type 1 squared with a champagne dial.
Oh, I was so hoping you'd wear that watch.
Oh yeah, our first Redbar get together with you, he's like, I gotta see this watch.
Oh man, I was so excited because I'd seen you post it on Instagram. It's crazy.
Yeah, I believe I only got it like a month after you guys started or something like that, right? Coming to the meeting. So,
yeah, you had just gotten it.
Yeah, I think I had just gotten it. Yeah. So yeah, no, it's definitely a special piece, and it was something that it was a long time in the making, right? I mean, ever since I saw or heard of Renaissance back a couple of years ago, I just been lusting over their stuff and then seeing them progress through the years. So it was a lot of work and effort, but I'm glad I pulled the trigger. It's definitely my Grail. So
it really is. They're stunning watches. Yours was the first I'd ever seen in the metal, as it were. And I know, I'm sure there's a lot of our listeners that don't know anything about the brand. So how did you find out about the brand? What is the brand all about? It's definitely, when you look at that watch, it's very different from anything that we're used to seeing, right? As watch aficionados and you know, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. The brand basically was created by an industrial engineer, and he designed, I believe, airplanes and trains in Europe and so forth. And he visited, I believe, one of the Basels watch shows, and he's like, "Oh man, everything just looks the same to me. I don't get it. Right? It's all, you know, you have your hands, you have, your seconds, and whatever other complications you want, but they all read time the same, right? There's no difference, right?" And he completely approached it from just a different angle, instead of really doing what some of the major brands and groups do, where they rely on heritage a lot of history, and they did this with the movement and that with the movement. He goes, "This is, for me, it's not about the movement. It's how you tell time," right? And he had basically created a different way, in my opinion, on how to tell time. And instead of having the one hand, the hour hand on the bottom and the minute hand on top, and all being at the same axis, he basically, if you will, broke that apart into these separate, separate planes, or separate wheels, if you will, and he put them all on the same plane, right? So it's very difficult to describe, because you have to really see it to believe it. So I think our listeners are at a disadvantage. But basically, these chambers that hold, one has the minute and one has the hour and second and day of the week, right? They all basically rotate within the watch itself, right? All a second at a time. So at every given second, the dial changes, and it geometrically changes. So you're looking at time in a different way, and it looks different at every time that you look at it. So that's I think the best I could do.
Yeah. Well, we're going to post a shot. We'll get a wrist shot from you and post that.
Maybe
so folks
a video or a lapse
there's
time.
some good videos out there, some time lapse videos that I've seen, but it's almost like I equate it to, it's like a big platter, and then you have a bunch of little teacup saucers, like 3 teacup saucers sitting on it. The whole platter is turning.
Kind of like at Disneyland.
The teacup saucers are turning within the, I mean, it really is.
At different speeds. It's
incredible.
Really unique.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And some of them are even oil filled, right?
Right. The Type 3 are oil filled. They have oil bellows inside the system, right? Because oil obviously with temperature contracts and expands, right? So those need to go in there somewhere. So the Type 3 is oil filled. The Type 5 is a diver watch, which is also oil filled. So Resistance, I think, for me anyway, why it was such a grail piece for me is that I didn't see anybody doing something like that. They're approaching it from a completely different angle. The base movement is just a standard, ETA 28-24 base, and they built their own rock system basically on top of that base movement. So they took something that's been the workhorse of the industry, that's been around for a while. Every watchmaker knows how to maintain it and work it, and then they built their own rock system on top of that and said, okay, this is what we're about. We're about looking at time in a different way, and making it all from the user experience, not the movement, right, but the user experience, which obviously resonated to me, right?
And it's such a common theme I'm finding now in watchmaking, and especially with the newer small companies coming out, the micro brands using, like, for example, the NH35, and they're building their own flavor of how to tell time, like the
like Reservoir.
Like Reservoir is doing that, and our kaleidoscope. I'm drawing a blank.
Oh, Humism.
The Humism watches.
Yeah, the
and
Humism
things
doesn't really modify it, but they modify the face.
Correct.
Right.
And it's less about the actual dials and the time, and more about the piece and time as just a different way.
Yeah.
And it takes a little bit of it getting used to. I think all of 5 minutes, in my opinion, to read a Resistance. But once you do, right, it's actually, what I find is that it's actually more intuitive than reading a regular 3-hand watch, right? It's just everything being on the same plane. You see all your indicators, because it's kind of a pseudo regulator, right, where each hand represents a different a different measurement. It's really, really natural, right? And to have a company kind of look at this problem and go, why hasn't anybody addressed this? To me, that just kind of spoke volumes, right?
Yeah, no, and I'm really glad you said that, because frequently when you see a watch that tells time in a different way, people either dismiss it out of hand, or they make comments like, "Oh, I don't know how you could possibly read that." And like a watch I've looked at for a long time is and I'll probably get the name of the brand totally screwed up, but the Favre Luba Raider Harpoon, and it tells time. It's a dive watch, big chunky dive watch, but it's kind of the same thing. It tells time in a different way.
Uh-huh.
And when I first looked at it, I'm like, how could you? I don't know if I get used to that. But then you look at it at a video of it for a couple minutes, it's like, whoa, this is way more intuitive than the standard, 2-hand or 3-hand.
I feel the same way about the Reservoir in is it Meisterslinger?
Meisterslinger, yeah, the single hand. Yeah.
At Vegas, we saw this. I love the single hand concept.
Yeah, it's very different and almost like a more relaxed way of telling time. So, well, that's awesome. I'm really stoked that you wore the Resonance. I was hoping for that. So, but I didn't want to guide you in any direction. So
No worries.
Good call, man. All right. So you want to go next on your wrist check?
Sure. Today I'm wearing our two-tone Rolex Submariner, blue and gold.
16613.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's the first generation.
Yeah, it's before the maxi dial and the larger lugs and stuff.
And it's a pretty large watch on me, but depending on what I wear, I can pull it off. So wearing that today, just sized. Oops. Okay, you'll have to edit that one out.
I'll have to cut that out.
Yeah. Ranch Racer just
PG screwed up.
I did. So Ranch Racer just sized the bracelet for me today to wear, and I got my nails polished, and I'm going to wear it to my routine chemo tomorrow. No major problems here. It's just a routine thing for my health. And I like to kind of wear something special when I go in for my treatments, because
makes you feel good.
Makes me feel good. Yeah, it kind of lowers the anxiety a little bit, and I don't want to just leave it in the safe all the time. So,
well, and speaking of this one, we're on the fence about what we're going to do with this watch. We've talked about it on the podcast before about potentially selling it. We got it appraised, and we're just, I don't know. We're on the fence. And Maciej knows I went back and forth on this watch when we first got it, and didn't know if I could pull off the gold, and got EA8 to make me a special leather band for it, which I really like. But it's a beautiful piece. It really is a beautiful piece. It's just a matter of, do we wear it enough?
Well, and it expresses something different when a woman wears it versus a man, I believe.
Well, for sure. Yeah.
It's the same watch, but when you wear it versus when I wear it, it looks different.
Maciej, you haven't tried this one, have you?
Your bluesy?
Yeah. Have you tried it?
I've the same friend who introduced me to watches, he had a bluesy, and so I have tried it, and not for great lengths of time or anything like that, but I personally love it. I think it looks great, but it's not something I personally could pull off. To be honest with you, I'm a little bit. For me, it's a little flashy. It's a little blingy, right?
Yeah.
So you when you wear it, you got to own it, that kind of thing, and I'm okay with that. I think that's great. But it's a classic look, I think, and the combination of the special blue that they have, in my opinion, with that yellow gold, I think it looks really, really nice and classy. So it's definitely a new classic, in my opinion. But I personally couldn't pull it off.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and that's what, for me, it's been. I haven't really had anywhere to wear it. I work in sales. I'm in front of customers
it has
a lot.
To be
I
appropriate.
can't wear it in front of customers. Yeah. I don't even feel comfortable wearing it to work with my peers. So it's been a tough one for me. And I do love the look of it. And personally, I don't know if I can actually pull it off or not. I feel pretty good wearing it, but you're definitely self-conscious about it. Right?
I agree. And it's like, I don't want to appear to be something I'm not, or, you know what I mean? I don't know how to quite say it.
Well, no, we've mentioned that, right? It's like, well, but at the end of the day, buy what you like and don't care about what other people think. That's what we're always
I'm a big fan of two-tone. I love yellow and steel.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. And I love blue. I love denim colors. Gosh, I love that Railmaster denim, Omega, all those. I could get on a total sideline here, but
Maciej will like to hear that.
Yeah,
he's a bit of an Omega fan.
We have Omega connection, so
we do.
Yeah, but this one, this was kind of a graily thing for me when we got it.
Yeah, for sure.
And
for both of us, it is a fun one to share. You know, it's big on you, but it's a dive watch, and it's nice and thin. And I think a 40 millimeter dive watch on a smaller wrist is perfectly fine. It's like me wearing a 44 or a 46, you know, big chunky monster.
Except I'm finding that, you know, doing livestock chores is not an appropriate place to be wearing something with 14 karat gold or whatever it is in this that could ding up or
scratches easily. Yeah.
Well, you know, I think collecting is different for everybody, right? So some people collect to acquire because they can appreciate it for what it is, and they'll always have it in their collection, right? And some people collect differently, right? I kind of go, you know, if I'm not wearing it, if I'm not enjoying it, or like you said, Ranch Racer, if it makes you self-conscious, then something about it is not for me, right? I want to be able to and you know, you're not going to feel comfortable wearing a particular watch in every single occasion. That's absolutely true, right? With anything.
Yep.
But it's gotta feel comfortable for you when you do wear it, right? And if it's not, if you're like, oh, so you're looking at it, is he making a judgment call because I'm wearing a two-tone gold, you know, thing? Then it's, you know, then it may not be that particular, you know, appropriate watch for that occasion, or if you will, right? So, you know, I'm of the mindset that, hey, you know, wear it, love it, and if it's no longer singing to you, you know, then maybe it's time to let it go, you know, and have somebody else enjoy it, right?
No, that's a great point. And we really, especially with some of our more expensive pieces, sometimes I don't even consider myself the owner. I'm just like the current caretaker of this watch, right? And someday I may pass it on to someone, I may sell it, but these things are designed to outlive us. So
right. Well, and like my Explorer, my black dial 36 millimeter, I find that I could wear that. That could be a one watch.
Totally.
Watch.
Yeah.
That is, and it's so subtle and classy. It's got such a great composition. It's balanced.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't just jump out and say, "Hello, I'm a Submariner."
No, it's a great piece. Well, and so speaking of watches that could be a one watch.
Oh, do you want to do your wrist check?
Yeah. So my wrist check's going to be talking about a couple different watches because this morning I started with my $80 Russian Vostok. Oh. Totally fun watch. Great looking dial. You know, just a ton of fun.
It's the Commandersky.
The Commandersky, yeah, which I've had for a while. We both bought. You bought a Scuba Dude, and I bought the Commandersky. I have
the automatic. Yours is manual wind.
It's a manual wind, and if I was Kaz, I'd be able to spit out the name of or the number of the movement because he knows them really well. But
he collects them.
Yeah, he's kind of he's the guy that turned us on.
He inspired us to try to each get one.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it stopped ticking.
Oh yeah, it did, and not too long. Not too long after you wound.
No, and it's done this to me before, but I just couldn't get it kickstarted today. So I took it off the wrist and actually have started disassembling it. I got the movement out, and I'm going to completely break it down and clean it and lube it and reassemble it, and hopefully that will take care of it. But you know, and as Kaz talks about all the time when they talk about these things, they're not very well-made watches. I mean, they came out of communist Russia, and they were pumping out as many as they could.
There are so many models,
a ton of them, and they're, you know, it's for. I actually posted on Instagram this morning, and I said, you know, it would be tough for me to recommend if you were buying your first mechanical watch and you didn't have a lot of cash, right? If you were looking at $100 or less, there's not a lot of mechanical watches out there that you can purchase for that money. But two that spring to mind are several of the Vostoks and
my personal favorite,
Seiko 5.
Yeah, I love my Seiko 5.
Seiko 5s you can frequently get for under $100, and they have great movements, and they're well made. And if you compare the quality of a Vostok to a Seiko 5, they're not even in the same league.
However, they are really unique.
That's the thing.
They're
so
really
I said if you're looking kind of for the interesting
campy
factor, the campy or whatever, they're very interesting. You don't see a lot of them. Great colors, you know, cheap plastic bezel. Although I know you can swap them out. I know Kaz has swapped out his bezels before.
It's plastic?
It is plastic, at least on mine. I don't know about your Scuba Dude, but so anyway, it stopped working.
People like to mod those. There's a lot of that going on.
There's a modding community for those. So I put on my trusty Rolex Oyster Perpetual 39 millimeter blue dial, and this could absolutely be a one watch type of deal, right? I mean, you can wear it anywhere. This is a watch, even though it's a Rolex, I don't feel uncomfortable wearing this to a customer or to work because nobody knows, right? It's just a nice blue dial watch. Super comfortable.
Classic style.
Classic style. Obviously has the Rolex reliability. And it's just it's my only sub 40 millimeter watch. And the way it's designed, it just looks so great on the wrist. I absolutely
Fits under
love
your
it.
sleeve.
Yeah, nice and thin. So it's for a guy, if you're going to have one watch, it better slip under a cuff, right? So a big Omega Speedmaster coaxial, that's going to be tough to get under a cuff. I don't see that being a one watch type of watch. But in any case, this is most definitely, this would qualify if we ever said, hey, let's just go down to one watch each. This could easily be.
That's such a hard choice.
Well, we can't. There's no way we could. No, Maciej couldn't either. That's just the kind of people we are. We couldn't do it. But so anyway,
I could pick a category and maybe pick one, but I would have a lot of categories.
Yeah, well, Mike of Two Rogue Watch Snobs kind of did this like diver, flyer, racer, I think was his 3 classifications. So
dress?
like maybe a 3 watch collection, like a pilot watch, a dive watch, and like a chronograph, like a racing type of watch. But I don't even think I'd do that. We're hopeless.
I've got vintage stuff. Maciej, do you have what's your vintage collection look like?
I'm not too big of a vintage guy. I only have 1 or 2 pieces, I guess, that would be considered vintage. The first being something I purchased last year out of Dubai, actually from a collector out of Dubai. And that's an Excelsior Park Monte Carlo. It's a beautiful chronograph, triple register with a date that has the 7734 Belgiu in it, and it's just it's a watch that really caught my eye because of its proportions. Every register, every numeral, everything is just absolutely perfectly positioned. Nothing overlaps. And it's a 43 millimeter watch, so it's towards the larger size, if you will, but it wears very, very well. I don't think it wears that large, but it's just something that was created, before the company went under, and it hit all my check marks from a look and design perspective. So it just, like I said, it's just something I had to have, and I was admiring this from a distance from this particular collector on Instagram, and I said, hey man, if you're ever gonna let it go, please let me know. And he posted a little blurb on Instagram that said, hey, I'm thinking about letting it go, and I just jumped right on it. I was like, I said, really, are you serious, or are you just still thinking about it? And he goes, yeah, I'm thinking about doing it. And and he was a great guy, and offered a very, very fair price for it. And I just said, yes, let's do this. And I didn't know him at all, to be honest with you, other than Instagram, right? And I basically, just took it on faith and sent him the money, right? And said, you know what, he can do whatever he wants, but I hope he's honest.
He's honest.
I hope you send me the watch.
But believe it or not, it took me 4 months to get the watch because
international.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He's like, look, I have a friend who visits me from New York once a month, and either he can take it with him and then ship it to you from New York, or we can risk it and I can just ship it to you internationally from here, whatever you want to do. I said, look, I'm a patient guy. I want this baby, but I don't want it to get lost. I will wait until your friend comes, right?
And it happened basically,
yeah. And so it happened that he goes, dude, I have some bad news. My friend's not coming next month, right? And I'm like, okay, all right, that's fine. I'll wait. And it happened that his friend wasn't coming the following month.
Oh my God, that's torture.
It was. It really was. I was like, hey, that's fine. Don't do anything with it. If he comes next month, that's great. I just I'd rather be safe with him, right, than so lost in translation somewhere else, right? So his friend did come the following month, and he basically overnighted it to me from New York, and I got it, and I've had it ever since. So it turned out very, very well. And, I love it. I don't think it'll ever leave my collection. But it was the very, very first vintage piece that I bought.
It is a super cool looking piece.
Yeah, it's a nice piece. It's a nice piece. And then the other, I guess we would now consider vintage piece. It's as old as I am, so I guess I'm vintage. But it's an Omega Speedmaster from '76, which I got also, I believe, last year. Yes, last year, October last year. I had sold my previous Speedmaster that I bought to parlay into a different watch, and I kind of regretted it, right? I love the Speedmaster. I love the whole Moon story, and this watch came up on Instagram, and it happened to be my birth year watch, and I started chatting with a gentleman via Instagram, and it was just kind of like now or never. It has the full box papers, everything with it, right? And the whole thing. And I was like, look, these don't come up that often anymore. If you don't get it now, it's kind of a now or never kind of deal, right? So, we all, I think as watch geeks and nerds, one time or another, you're going to be faced with a situation that says now or never, right? Either you get it now or it's going.
It's gone.
It's gone, right? So, it's hard because you guys are a couple who loves watches, so you can understand that and relate, if you will, right? But for somebody who has a spouse who doesn't understand that, right? for you to pull a trigger on something
imagine.
like that, right? It can, it can create some.
Well, it's kind of like being the wife of a race car driver.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been through that.
It can create some tough conversations, right?
Yep.
So, like I said, I'm generally not impulsive, if you will, but when something comes up that, you look for a long time and it's the condition that you want and it has box and papers and, it's you've been looking for it and hunting for it for a while, right? You got to do it. Otherwise,
totally.
You'll have regrets, right?
There was an Omega that I spotted, one of the gals. We follow each other, and I'm not a constellation person. It's a ladies' constellation that they don't make anymore, and it has the subdials, but it's a quartz, and it was a little bit out of my price range when you think about quartz, but I believe it was two-tone, so I think that's where.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's gone. But I considered it. I see what you mean about, you got to act or just you got to forget it.
And if you don't act,
it's like I'm always going to be thinking about it. Yeah,
it's always going to pick at you. It's always going to.
It's picking
you,
at me. It's picking.
Well, so speaking of collecting, and again, before we get into the Redbar topic, Maciej, you started to kind of talk about this, but in this world that we're all involved in, frequently you'll hear people talk about how some watch geeks are collectors and others aren't. And when they say that, and it's not something that I agree with, but some people feel that if your collection or your buying tendencies aren't focused to, and it could be, you could be an Omega collector or a vintage Rolex collector or a vintage
G-Shock.
Seiko or a G-Shock collector.
A lot of that.
Then if you don't have that focus, there's people out there that will say, well, you're not a watch collector. And I find that funny because, I mean, PG and I have it's a huge collection. It's ridiculous,
I kind of disagree with that whole thing.
But I've never had that kind of focus. I just buy, if I see something I like and I can afford it, I buy it. That's just how and for me, I still consider myself a watch collector, but I'm curious if you have ever had or do have any kind of a direction, or there's something specifically you look for in your collection of watches, or do you just buy what you like?
Is there a common theme, or is that what you mean?
Well, I think some collectors definitely, if you will, latch onto a particular watch, if you will, right? And then they kind of go, okay, this is kind of my grail. This is my watch that I love everything about it. And then they kind of expand on that theme, if you will, right? And say, okay, I'm going to get that same watch in this color, or this with this bracelet, or with this dial, or with this, right? And they kind of,
because it works. They know it works.
Because it works. It says something to them. And that's absolutely fine. Some people are very laser focused on a particular watch, and they kind of grow their collection around that, right? But for me personally, this is more of an art, I think, or I should say it's 50-50, really, right? It's art meeting science, right? It's art meeting mechanics. And so, it's crazy to go, oh, you know what? You just need one piece of art on your wall and that's fine. That's good enough, right? To decorate your home or what have you. So I am definitely not in that kind of category where to say I only like one thing, right? I can absolutely appreciate a watch for what it is, for the amount of time it took to create and the time of creating the right proportions and case size and thickness and everything, right? I can absolutely appreciate it, and at the same time go, it's absolutely not for me, right? It doesn't. I would never wear it. It's beautiful. It hit the mark from an aesthetics point of view for some people. For me, not so much. It doesn't do it for me, right? I have to have some kind of an emotional connection to what I see. It has to make me feel something, right, when I look at it, and then it means something to me, right? Otherwise, it just doesn't say anything. I just pass. It's not for me. I can appreciate for it, but it's not for me, right? So my collection, I think, is, I think it's small, relatively speaking, if you will, right? I don't know if I'd even call it a collection, right? But my gathering of watches is kind of more. I'm more of a sporty watch collector, right? So I don't have really any dress watches per se. I'm more kind of utilitarian. That's where I kind of started from, right? With liking chronographs a lot and dive watches, right? So something that make the watch a tool watch, if you will. That's really where I kind of started from. Make it, the watch should be a tool watch, right? Yeah. That's where kind of my origins came from, and I kind of just been really down that quote unquote sport themed watch, right? So from divers to chronographs, that's really the essence of my little gathering of watches, if you will.
And I think that's common. Like I found that when I'd look in my watch box, there would be some common things in most of them initially, whether it be the size or the colors, or like me, for example, I have a watch that has ceramic. It's all white. I have one that's a white rubber band. I had this whole kick on white for a while.
You were into white for a while.
Really into white. And then
your Omega,
now,
your Speedmaster's white.
Yeah, and I love it. And it matches so many. Yeah. I can wear it with anything.
Yep.
Then now I'm kind of getting into the black dial because that's also very neutral and can go with a lot. So now I'm kind of going outside of the box a little more and getting some more unusual things.
We're definitely outside. So I see a dress watch in your future, Maciej. You've been posting a lot of different dress watches and saying, "Hey, this looks pretty cool." I it's coming. I see it coming. It's gonna happen.
I don't know about that. I don't think so. I don't have too many occasions to wear dress watches, so I don't know. I think the response is as dressy as I get.
And you can be dressed up. I mean, I could see you wearing that with a nice suit or even a tux. It's a beautiful, very elegant looking sport watch, if you will.
And changing a band or putting a metal bracelet on something totally
changes
mixes it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Even your Oyster Perpetual, I mean, people would call that a tool sort of dive watch, but that could definitely be a dress watch.
Oh yeah, I could wear this literally on any occasion. Well, and I the one thing I do know about Maciej is that if it doesn't have a date window, he just passes.
Is that right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he has to have a date window.
Is that for me when I write checks?
Isn't that right, Maciej?
Oh yeah,
I have to write checks.
Right there. Yeah.
That's obviously very tongue in cheek. Maciej and I argue back and forth on the date.
He doesn't like it? You don't like it?
No.
You're a no date guy.
I'm no date guy. I'm a
no date. Oh, you like the simple, let the dial speak for itself sort of thing.
Yes, I like symmetry. I like balance, if you will. Proportions are very, very meaningful to me, right? And the date, usually speaking, not always, right? Usually speaking, throws the dial off for me, right? And so I'm usually a no date guy. I never use that complication per se, if you will. I'll never really need to know what date it is.
See, when you live in the country and you have livestock, you have to write a lot of checks.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. So, but again, I'm a double wrist kind of guy, though, right? So I have,
You are.
That's
right.
right.
I wear an Apple Watch on one wrist, and I wear my Mechanical Love on the other. So,
And we've never held that against you. So.
Gotta be me. What can I say?
Absolutely. Buy what you love and
Wear it
love
all.
what you buy, right? Well, so I really want to, we're pretty well into the podcast here, and I do want to talk about Redbar. Like I said, when I first started to learn about Redbar, I don't know, a few years ago, the impression that I got was not the impression I came away with after meeting you and the guys and the collectors for the first time. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how did this all come to be? I mean, you're the founder of Redbar Sacramento, and that's no small task to start up something like that and get people to come. And how did that all come about?
Well, it came about where obviously, I had the guy who introduced me to watches, right? He was a member of the group now. We always called each other or talked or met up and always talked watches and, whatever he saw or whatever he was interested in. And then I met another person at my work, and he wanted to talk watches, right? So I said, we should probably get together, since us three guys at least, want to talk watches, want somebody to talk to about watches, right? That's the key, right? Meeting somebody who really loves watches, I think, is a rarity, and so to have kind of an outlet that we could do that said something to me, right? And basically, I just said, you know what? Let's do this. There is no Redbar in Sacramento. There's a Redbar in San Francisco. I think they're far enough, if you will. And so I basically just did it. I just said, I went on Instagram, reserved the name, and reserved the domain name, and then just started doing it, and kind of came up with a list of people who I thought would enjoy coming and talking to us, and sent out a little hello, this is what we are about kind of email. And see who kind of showed up, right? And we were fortunate to have Mike Seals from Seals Watch Company be one of our first at our first meeting, where he kind of talked about his brand, and he's a micro brand here out of Northern California, and it kind of just grew from there, right? And we meet once a month, and basically really get to know each other, right? I mean, it's not all about just watches. It's about what makes each person tick, and therefore what do they like about watches, right? People who know me know I'm extremely detail oriented. There's something off, right, about a particular
It's going
aspect
to
of
drive
a
you
watch,
nuts for
right?
months.
Right. It'll drive me nuts, and people know about that, right? And people go, look, I love this watch, and I go, but what about that, right? You know what I mean?
And then you can't unsee
forget
it
it.
once Maciej points it out to you.
Yeah, and so for some people, they're like, hey, that's okay. I don't care. It's still beautiful to me, right? And that's great. That's fantastic.
Like
for
applied indices, right? Applied indices. Now it's all I look at. Does it have applied indices?
Right. Exactly. So, does the seconds hand go all the way to the edge, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah.
everybody, what's great about Red Bar, or at least the Sacramento chapter, is that we're such a small group and so tight-knit. We've gotten to know each other's idiosyncrasies, right? We've gotten to know what each person likes, dislikes, and we joke around with each other. We play off of each other.
Well, everybody's
right?
approachable, It's not, there's nothing intimidating. It's not, there's no pomp and circumstance or any kind of intimidation or snobbery. There's no snobbery.
We have to have a sense of humor, because we do razz each other a lot. And it's all in good fun, right? Nobody should take it seriously. We just know each other. We know each other's personalities and what makes each other tick. And we give each other crap, and hey, we take it. You got to be able to give and get, right, at the same time. So I think it's a really fun group. I love doing it. It's hard. Obviously, everybody has different things in life and schedules to get everybody in sync and so forth. But it's something very pleasurable, very fun. So I'm very happy that you guys had such a great experience coming for the first time. Thinking that it's going to be very, very pompous and so forth. And it's good to hear that you guys had such a good time.
There's such a great variety of the timepieces too.
Oh man,
everything.
It's just so fun to see that pile at the end of the night and look through everyone's watches. And I mean, for us, yeah, I mean, like I said, we had no idea what to expect. And then I saw a picture of your Response. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know if we're going to fit in. I don't think we're going to
bring my Seiko 5 and it's like,
and
everybody else had a Seiko 5 and we're like, oh.
There's Casios up to Rolexes and a Response. I mean, there's just everything, and everyone is so awesome. And, for us, it's like we live up here in the country. We're far apart from other people. We don't have a lot of interaction with folks. And for us, when we can make it, we don't make it every month. It's just so fun. And we feel like we've gotten, it's still a small group, a small core group of folks, but we feel like we've made, a bunch of new friends almost overnight.
And I got the pleasure of meeting your lovely wife and son. And that's been we're making friends, and it's like some of the other hobbies we've had over the years where it's more about getting to know each other as well.
It really is. That's really the fun of it, in my opinion. When you really get to know the other person, we now are at a point where we suggest watches for our friends, right? Yeah. We're like, hey, did you see this? I think you would really like that based on their tastes, right? So, we all have, little watches here and here that we look for. And, it's happened now a number of times where I actually found a watch that another member was looking for, right? And he went and bought it that day, right? It was just like, there it is. That's the one you've been looking for, right? Yep. That's the one. And I kind of was hunting a little bit for him, right? Because I wanted him to have that Grail watch that he was looking for, right? So it was fun to be able to do that and look, and have somebody else interest in mind. It's not just about you, right? It's what other people enjoy, right? And having the ability to say, hey, I think you're really going to dig this one, right? This is right up your alley, and it's fun. It's, like I said, it's all about having fun with a great hobby. Wristwatches are, they're not tools anymore, right? You don't really need a wristwatch, right? Have fun with it, right? Have fun, joke around.
And it can liberate you a little bit too. Like I used to have a leather clip that my phone was on my belt. And now I don't do that. I put it in my purse. Because I wear a watch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is kind of nice.
It's an object that, in a lot of cases, takes you back in time. Mm-hmm. It's to a time that was a little bit simpler.
Not to have a pun.
Well, but we're all so surrounded by technology. We're inundated with technology, right? And especially the younger generations.
Tell the story.
They've grown up just with tech. Oh, what, you want me to tell that story again?
Tell it one more time quickly.
Really quick. Okay.
We talked about it in one of our first podcasts.
Yeah.
I think
so if you guys haven't heard this, if you haven't heard some of our original podcasts, I was at our yearly sales conference. I work for a large tech company, and I was at our yearly sales conference, and I was at one of the booths of one of our business units and talking to them about the product. And there was a young gal standing next to me. I mean, she couldn't have been more than 21, 22. She's probably an intern, or this could have been maybe her first job out of college. I don't know. Very young. And she turned to me and she said, "Oh, what? Can you tell me what time it was?" Her phone was dead. She said, "Oh, can you? What time is it? I've got a session coming up." Well, so I just picked up my wrist and showed her my watch. You were
trying to be discreet.
Yep, trying to be discreet. I just kind of showed her my watch, and she looked at me and she goes, "What do you want me to do with that?" I said, "Here's the time." She did not know how to read an analog watch face. It was incredible. And I know, Maciej, I know I've told you that story, but the younger generation, they've grown up with just being force-fed information, right? Instantly. And if they don't have that information, they almost can't function. So watches for us it's kind of that escape, right? It's a little bit of an escape from technology. It's an escape from the news. When we get together with the Redbar group, you're not talking about politics. You're not talking about, what's happened in the news today. You're just geeking out over watches. Mm-hmm. It's just a ton of fun. So it's been really, Go ahead.
If you recall your school, right? I mean, I don't know
Are we
about you,
losing
but I
him?
remember always looking.
Hold
Are
on.
we losing you?
Yeah, it's getting a little. Try again. You there? Oh, I think we lost him.
Oh,
No, I'm here.
Oh,
I'm
there
here.
he is.
Are you
Okay.
he's
here?
back.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There you
Sorry
go.
about that. You guys lost.
Welcome back.
Okay, sorry. You're gonna have to edit that. Sorry. But I don't know if you recall, but when you were at school and you were a kid, it all when is your recess? When is this class gonna end? Right?
Mm-hmm.
When is this thing gonna happen? And I remember I had to know how to read a clock, right? It was something that was required in school, so I knew when the next class was happening, right?
Yep.
So I have that tie to it. But now, in this digital age, I've heard that somewhere they want to get rid of all analog clocks
In schools.
at schools
Yeah.
and just go digital, right? So it's.
But when
it's
will you
quite
know
a-
when
it-
recess is going to come, or when do you know
Your iPhone
when
will
your
tell
next
you.
class?
Your
or-
computer will tell you.
Do kids carry phones in grade school?
I think all kids carry phones, right? Does your kid carry a phone, Maciej?
No, he doesn't. He
Okay.
doesn't carry a phone, but he does have an Apple Watch, right? So I can kind of track him and communicate with him, if you will, at a level. So,
Got it.
but again, most kids, I think nowadays, right, have cell phones. I mean, it's just something so ubiquitous now, right?
Which is it blows me away because I had penny loafers and I used to have a dime in my penny loafers in each shoe in case I had
For
to
a
use the
phone call.
payphone
Yep.
to
I
call
always had,
if I
my
got
mom
sick
always
as
made
well.
sure I had a dime for a phone call. Yeah.
And that was in 7th and 8th grade.
Look, not everything is better in the past, right? I mean, technology.
When we walked uphill to school
and both
both
Maciej
ways,
and I work
one shoe.
in high tech. I mean, technology has brought a lot of good things, but it's also I think obviously just what we see in society. It's also
Kinda
created
lost
a lot
touch,
of controversy, and it's kind of a lot of human beings have lost touch with their humanity in some cases. But anyway, it just Redbar is that opportunity for us to just kind of escape and hang out with folks that are like-minded and that love the same thing that we do. So we have really enjoyed it. And what do you have any plans for the group? Like I said, it's a small group, very small kind of niche group of people. It's not like some of these other Redbar chapters that are like 50 or 100 people. And you couldn't even in 2 hours, you couldn't even meet half of those people. Right. And that's what I enjoy, that it's a pretty small group, but how do you foresee it growing large, or do you have plans for it, or are you just kind of going day to day?
No, I'm really going day to day. I'd rather this whole thing be organic, if you will, right? So I enjoy the size that it is because I get to talk to all the people. I get to see what they're interested. I get to learn about them and what they like about a particular watch, right? And get to know them a little bit more, right? If you have 50 people in a room with 300 watches, right, you're really not going to get to meet your neighbor, right, and to know about
and see
them.
everything.
So, yeah, and so I don't mind that it's small because it makes it a little bit more personal for me, right? Where I would like to see it go, if you will, is to have maybe the group have some kind of more of a educational aspect. I mean, at one time or another, I think before you guys joined last year, I kind of made a PowerPoint presentation about a particular company or a movement or something to that effect, right? So I would love to be able to say, at a particular meeting, this is what we're going to be. This is the topic at hand that we're going to be discussing.
Let's talk about spring drive.
Yeah.
Or
exactly,
coaxial.
exactly.
Or
right,
interesting.
Right. Exactly. So I'd like it to be, if you will, a little bit on the educational side, right? And if we even had, I mean, one of our members is a watchmaker themselves, right? If we had one of him kind of talk about a particular aspect of a watch, right? I think it would be
manufacturing.
Really cool.
That would be totally cool. Yeah. That would be a lot of fun.
And so, yeah, I'd like it to be fun and a little educational because not everybody obviously collects for the same things. Not everybody knows about a particular movement or an escapement or something to that effect, right? Or what they are. Right? So, bringing some new knowledge to the group, I think would be great. But again, the size really, like I said, I like to keep it organic. I like to meet everybody and know and have that personal connection with anybody. So I'm not here to make it large, if you will. But if it grows naturally, then That's great.
Yeah.
I actually had one gal ask me about it. She's out past Sacramento, so she was like, well, I can't really make that distance after work, but that's one person who was actually local who kind of found the Redbar Sac.
Yeah.
So
well,
I don't know.
and I know.
We'll see what happens with her.
I mean, I
her
think
husband.
we're getting approaching an hour here, so we do need to probably wrap pretty soon. But we know there's other collectors out there in Sacramento, right? That they probably don't know about Redbar Sac. If you're out there and listening, just go into Instagram, search for Redbar Sac. You'll find Maciej. You'll find the account. He can tell you where we meet, when we meet. Come on out. I mean, it is just so fun to talk to other folks that are into this, because it's such a niche hobby, right? And Maciej, like you said, we don't need these things anymore. It's become a luxury item, right? It's not a need to have item anymore. We do it because we're passionate about it, and it's fun to talk to others that are passionate about it. I mean, PG and I are lucky because we can talk to each other, and we'll sit there for hours and talk about.
And that's why we started our
watches,
podcast.
and that's why we started. It's like, why don't we just start recording this, right, and share it with other people? And so that was the whole point of us starting the podcast, was we wanted to share with other people. And I mean, some of our followers have become our good friends, but I consider everyone that listens to the podcast, that interacts with us on Instagram, they're all kind of part of my watch family, and I think Redbar just allows you, or any group, whether it's Redbar or Watch Bay. I think it's Watch Bay meetups, isn't it, in the Bay Area?
Watch the Bay.
Watch the Bay. Yeah.
They don't have a Redbar.
It doesn't really matter what the group is. I mean, Redbar just allowed collectors to kind of put a structure around it, right? But it doesn't really matter. It's just people getting together to talk about watches, right?
Absolutely. And you and I have obviously traveled together down to the Bay Area, and to have a larger group or special, go to some special events. So it's really just about getting together with your watch geeks and having a good time with your hobby, right?
Totally.
Having a good time. That's the point.
There's never a lull in the conversation.
No, never.
That is the cool thing.
Sometimes it goes on, right? Sometimes it goes on where you have to cut it short, right? You're like, okay, look, we've already been here 3 hours, guys. We got to go, right? That's when the fun starts happening.
And it's so easy to just start up. You don't have that uncomfortable, like, what are we going to talk about, right? You know what you're going to talk about. You just dive into watches and you meet people. It's great.
And you guys have been such a great supporter, and when you guys come with your collection, it's always a joy for us to have you guys, and I think you make the group what it is. So
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure to have you guys.
I wish we could come more often. It's
challenging.
Yeah,
but
it can be hard with all the animals here and then the drive and everything.
Health issues and all that stuff.
But it becomes a date night, and it's fun.
And it's just something that we get so excited about when we know we're going. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to Redbar this week. I can't wait. So, well, it's that sad time. I think we need to wrap the show, but I want to, Maciej, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know we've talked about this for a while, and like I said, we have a list of folks that we potentially want to bring on the show, but you were always going to be the first, and we really appreciate you coming on. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It was a pure pleasure, and I'm glad you guys are part of the Redbar community. Reach out anytime if you guys want to have another one. I'm always open to discuss any kind of topics you'd like. So thank you for having me on. Absolutely.
All right. Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. Again, this was really exciting for us to bring on our first guest. And worked really well. Yeah, it worked well. It took a little bit of time to set up, but it was a lot of fun, and we look forward to doing more of these guest shows. So for Love and Watches, I am Ranch Racer. And I'm Perpetual Girl. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. We will talk to you guys again in episode 17. See ya.